It's a book about female friendship and female sexual agency. I feel like there are little pieces of me in all of the characters.
Razia, what's your take on the female friendship?
Friendships are friendship. They are neither male or female. That's what I believe.
Once you start pitching your script, once the script was ready and you start pitching to the publisher, so how was their reaction? Did they accept it in a one go or they rejected it for a certain reason? How did it go about it?
I felt very lucky to have multiple people excited about the book. But for me, it was doubly special because I had spent 7 months getting rejected. I like the big, intense department store kind of bookstore also for a different reason, but I think I'm a lot more drawn to the quiet ones, the second-hand ones.
I didn't see any disconnect. Oh, she was this, so can she be an author? I just don't think it's the point.
That's lovely, but that's also a very rare viewpoint.
Welcome to the Booknerds podcast, and here this time we are in the Blend Bazaar with the author Saumyaa Vohra, who has written this book, One Night Only, published by Pan Macmillan, India. And here we'll be talking about her journey as an author, although she has worked with many fashion magazines, GQ India, Cosmopolitan, and now with this piece of work, let's hear from her what she has to say. So welcome Saumyaa to the session, and with her we have the founder of the Blend Bazaar, Razia Ali. Welcome Razia to the session.
Thank you, Neha.
So we'll start with Saumyaa, and Saumyaa, if you can start with this book, what this book is about.
What the book is about?
Yes.
Okay, so it's my debut novel. I've been a journalist for about 10 years and I've worked across the publications you mentioned, but also several others. And this was my first attempt at writing fiction. I guess not technically my first attempt, but my first published attempt. It's a book about, I think the elevator pitch would be female friendship and female sexual agency. It's what I believe to be the country's first bisexual protagonist in a mainstream novel, and I felt like it was really important to have a bisexual protagonist so that light could be shed on bisexuality and what it means to be a bisexual woman in India and navigating the Indian queer spaces. So yeah, it's my debut novel.
So this is the first bisexual female protagonist in the book. So if you can, we can share some light on the characters, which are 4 main characters here. One is Natasha and Saira,
yeah.
Rubani,
Yes,
and the last one is
Faiza.
Yes. So who is the most relatable character is you from all 4 of them?
Oh, as in which one is most autobiographical?
Yes.
I get that question a lot. But actually the thing is, I feel like there are little pieces of me in all of the characters. I know that sounds like a cliche answer, but it's true. And I think that writers just tend to do that. Like they tend to write themselves a little bit into every character's parts they like, parts they don't like. And for me, I think that there's little pieces of me. Everyone who's read the book and knows me well has been able to recognize those pieces. But what's been great is that people who don't know me well just think that these are 4 very independent, separate characters. And they are. I think that there are pieces of me, but I've also tried to write out and draw these very distinct characters that I really wanted to feel like real people. So when people were reading the book, it was important to me that, you got a sense of who these people truly were. And that was a mix of the black and white, and it was a mix of things that you would like about each character and not like about each character. I think Rubani is my least favorite, but that's by design. I think that I wrote Rubani in a way that her flaws come out a little bit more than the others, because the novel is a little bit more from her perspective than the others. And I think that it's very natural for us to relate to somebody flawed, because the first thing we kind of recognize in ourselves are the things we hate about ourselves.
Negative things, more about the negative things that actually remember the person.
Absolutely.
So we'll ask Razia. Razia, what's your take on the female friendship?
Okay, firstly, I'm super glad to be sitting here. Thank you, Saumyaa. Female friendships, well, I'd say it's one of the most cliche subject again, because friendships are friendship. They are neither male or female. That's what I believe. But I think the bond two females share definitely is something that we haven't heard, read, or haven't seen it being glorified, right? And I'm super glad that Saumya's book takes a shot at that. I'm halfway through it, and I'm looking forward to complete that soon.
Nice. So Saumya, in your book, like if you'll go to page number 22, you have mentioned few wine brands, because the ketchup even go up and wine is needed, of course. So you have mentioned 2-3 brands like Joe's, Caro, and couple of them. So these are your favorite brands, if I just ask, or what is the purpose of mentioning wine in the book?
It's not wine. Jose Cuervo is a tequila brand, but I think that for me, I think, like I said a little bit earlier, I feel like writers tend to write what they know. And for me, I've worked in lifestyle for, well, pretty much my entire career. I've worked in lifestyle, I've worked in fashion, so it inevitably seeps into the way I write. I feel like it just, and also in general, as a reader, I like a well-researched book. So I like books that if you're going to be talking about whiskey, or you're going to be talking about wine, or you're going to be talking about a fragrance, you should know what you're talking about, or don't talk about it. It's very simple.
Great.
Keep it vague, or if you're getting specific, then do your research and get specific. So for me, when I've talked about certain brands, I think I've brought those names in specifically because they evoke something. Like when you hear say for example Louis Vuitton, or you hear Bulgari, or whatever it is, it brings to mind something. It creates you have a certain presence associated with a brand. So if you're talking about a brand, I feel like, and if you're trying to evoke a certain feeling in a reader, then I feel like the brand is a very quick shortcut to that. So it's easier to say it's easier to say Moet than it is to say a great champagne or a luxury champagne, because in your head, if you're somebody who's a drinker of champagne, you know Moet.
Great.
So yeah.
Great. And what about your take on the brands, maybe a wine brand or a fashion brand?
Okay, brands are important. As somebody who is a fashion enthusiast myself, I think it's more and more the Indian users and readers in the context of this discussion love, and the emphasis that an author gives on getting the research right. It's a very valid point. I love brand quotes being referenced, reading about them. My favorite are a couple. I don't want to name them right now, but yeah, I mean, as an Indian economy, I think the Indian users are getting more and more accustomed to a lot of fashion brands, and books like this, which are well researched and authored, definitely will add to the knowledge space of the Indian readers.
Great. So here I'll just read an excerpt, and I would like to hear from you exactly.
Would you like me to read it?
Of course, the underlined one.
Sure.
Although my
Here
favorite
to
one. Yes, just
Here to here.
For
Here to
all
here?
I know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fine, Saira huffed. I may have flirted with the hostess a little. She grinned, wiggling her upturned nose with glee. Rubani stared at Saira blankly. Why would you do that? Yeah, I mean, whatever. I just flirted. It's not that big a deal, Bani, Saira said, a bit offhand. Besides, she's probably straight too, for all I know.
So what's your take on casual dating? What's that?
Casual dating?
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think that honestly, any type of relationship, I think that we live in a very interesting time for relationships right now, because there's so many structures. I've done a lot of pieces on open relationships, on polyamory, on lots of polyfidelity, relationship anarchy, and it's just so interesting to me because I think about the way that we've all been raised. We've been raised with this one very specific construct of what a relationship is supposed to look like, and you can either be good at that kind of relationship or bad at that kind of relationship.
Yes.
And I think what's really nice about right now, and the conversations that have happened and started opening up other conversations, is that there are a lot more structures now, and I think that is beautiful because different things work for different people.
Definitely.
Relationships are not a one size fits all, and different things work as long as there is transparency. And I think that casual dating is great. For some people, it's a means to an end. You do the casual dating thing until you find someone serious and you settle down. And for some people, like Saira in the book,
Yes.
she has no interest in settling down.
Right.
So for her, she enjoys dating, she enjoys companionship, but she is set in her ways and she enjoys her life as it is. And I think that for me, I liked the fact that she was a casual dater who didn't really want commitment, because I don't think women are given that model enough. Like women are
Exactly.
always told that, you know, you should be married by a certain age. You should
right,
you
a
should
certain,
move towards that. Like
certain
you
rules of life,
Correct, that
being
you're al-
married and being in love.
Exactly, and you're always told to move towards a goal. Like relationships are supposed to move towards a goal, and what women are never told to do, which we make that exception for men all the time, is just have fun. Have fun, discover your body, talk to people, meet people, explore what you care about, explore your sexuality, ask yourself questions, make mistakes. And I think that women are not encouraged to do that. Like women are encouraged to find a partner and settle down. And like I don't think it's even a social strata thing, because I've talked to people across social stratas and it seems to be common across the board. So you're seeing people from various different socioeconomic circles all headed towards that same goal of marriage.
Yes.
So I think that I like the idea of casual dating as a concept for women to adopt, so that they find out more about themselves. It can be something they do forever. It can be something they do till they find
But
something
more
that
than,
works for them.
women to adopt that, I think the whole society should adopt it first, so that not to judge girls.
Absolutely, but the thing is, the change also starts from us. And the thing is that of course, I have a lot of feelings on the way men should be educated about how to treat women.
Oh,
That
yes.
is a subject for a separate podcast.
For
I think
sure.
that women also have to be able to take that agency and know that you're going to be judged, and people are always going to say something nasty. And the thing is, the more women who are willing to say, you know what, say what you want. It's fine. I'm still going to do what I want to do. I'm
Great.
still going to do what I need to do. The more women that do that, the less power society has.
Yes, that's very true. So, Razia, what's your take on casual dating? How do you look upon it?
Okay, I think to each his own, right? What casual dating is doing in today's world is it's giving individuals opportunity to find their right partner. But what could potentially go wrong is when both the partners in the whole scheme have expectations set before, right? It could go awfully wrong if one person gets into with some other expectation and the other is not.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the only downfall to this. But yeah, I mean, I always believe that humans should always have the choice of what they want to do, and finding a good life partner is important. And if casual dating helps them to find a better suitable one, why not?
I agree, and I think that that's exactly why I said transparency is important.
Absolutely.
So when you're getting into a casual dating space, I feel like it's very important for whoever it is to establish right from the get-go. You know, like
Right.
this is what I'm looking for. This is what I can give, and everyone needs
that
to be
works,
on board.
if you are being transparent, I think all the
And this
relationship
is
works.
this is not just about casual dating. This is about if you're in an open structure, if you're in a monogamous structure, if you're in a polyamorous structure. If you're not transparent, things will definitely blow
go
up.
Sure.
wrong. For
Yeah,
sure,
so
for
monogamy
sure.
is no solution, because how many people do you know who aren't transparent with their partners and do whatever they want?
That's not, I think people
Exactly.
not accept it. Although,
Yeah.
in olden days when we read any of our Mahabharata and Ramayana,
Mm-hmm.
if we'll see, polygamy was there. It is a part of, do you know that, right? Polygamy
Polyamory?
yeah,
Yeah.
it is acceptable, but now it's not.
No, that's actually very true, because the thing is, if you look at the trajectory of relationship structures, you'll find that even, for example, the Elizabethan era was a lot more sexually free than the Victorian era, which came afterwards. And we
Yes.
tend to generally assume that progress moves forward, but that's actually not true. There are moments in even our country's history that have been more repressed than times before it. So I think that it has a lot to do with the socio-economic culture and the structure at that time. Very often it has to do with governance, it has to do with a lot of different things. But I think it's important to just keep having conversations. And like the more conversations you have with people about it, the more likely you are to open up their minds and to open up your own mind.
Right. So one quote I would like to read for you, just because I loved it personally. The intimacy that comes with a decade of pure partnership. This is what we are talking about.
Yeah.
So you put that quote. So what does that mean to you?
The intimacy that, okay. Rubani remembered thinking, that's what I want, the intimacy that comes with a decade of pure partnership, and wondering if she'd ever have that with Kabir. The prick of nausea returned. Oh, right. This is about.
This is what we are actually
This is
talking,
about when
discussing.
Alex moves her hair out of her.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that. Yeah, I think that for me, the point of this was to talk about how, you know, there's, especially in romance novels, I find this is not a romance novel. This is not a romance
This is
novel
not a romance
at all.
novel at all.
Okay, no,
at
no,
all.
like there's no happy ending. I mean, there's a happy ending that just doesn't involve a guy on like a horse or anything. There's no knight in shining armor. But I think that one thing that bothered me about reading romance when I was younger was that I felt like it focused a lot on the grand gestures, the big feelings, the guy turning up with the boombox, you know, or running to the airport and stopping her. And it's nice, it's sweet, sure. But I think that for me, like, I've always found the most romance is always in these very small moments. Like, if you think back on the relationships that have mattered to you, you'll remember things like this. You'll remember that, like, every time I cut something on a plate, my partner holds it down so I can cut it better. You know, those little moments of thoughtfulness, or like things like that, you know, like, or like, for example, if you know that you tend to, like, for me, I tend to walk into traffic when I'm walking on the road, and my partner will just like move me out.
Oh, that's
So, you know, the thing is that, like, little things like that, I think that's where romance really lies.
actually very
know,
true.
and-
Very small things
Yeah,
make actually sense apart from doing the flowery things in a bigger.
Yeah, and I
ways.
feel like those things are lovely, and I think they're also great to read about in literature because it doesn't always happen in real life. But I think that real life is full of lots of really beautiful romantic moments. It can just be like stopping for a second on the street and like looking at the full moon or whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be flamboyant. It just has to be a little moment. And the more time you spend with someone, those little intimacies grow. And I think that's what I was talking about with Natasha and Alex's relationship, which is that after 10 years of being together, your bodies are in sync in a way that, you know.
Their connection is beautiful. I found
Thank
so beautiful
you.
connection of Natasha and Alex. The
Yeah.
way you have described it, it's actually so real. Sounds so real.
Thank you.
So I loved it personally.
Thank
Razia,
you.
do you have any question for Saumya to ask?
Oh, for sure. Firstly, I think the biggest question that I was intending to ask you off camera to let me take the opportunity to do that now. You had a glorious career. You've been a successful editor writing for lifestyle pieces. How was the transition for you, to become a full-time writer? How was the journey? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I'm
sure
not a
lot of-
full-time author. I'm still a journalist, very
Okay.
much. The only difference is that now I'm not full-time with the publication because I did want to focus more
Sure.
on writing. But yes, the transition was definitely interesting because, I mean, I've seen a lot of journalists transition to writing, and the two kinds of writing don't always marry. But for me, I actually wanted to be an author and to write fiction when I was much younger. And journalism actually happened for me much later. So journalism happened when I was 21 years old. I decided to do a year of internships, and I just did one month at a bunch of places. Everyone thought I was insane, but it was great because I interned in radio, in journalism, in advertising, in film. I was an AD for Anurag Kashyap.
Wow.
I did a lot of very random things. I interned for Greenpeace. Yeah, like it was I interned in PR. I interned in event management. It was
She has
crazy.
explored a lot in her early age.
Yeah,
I think,
so I
right?
just did like one month everywhere to get a little sampler. Like it was like a cheese board of like careers, writing careers. And I found that for me, there were a lot of things that I loved, but journalism stood out. Like I loved the format, and I also studied media in college. And I just went into journalism on a whim because I wrote to the editor at the time at Cosmopolitan, and out of nowhere, and she just gave me a shot. She was just like, okay, I'm going to send you an edit test, and I sent back her edit test, and she hired me out of nowhere, fresh out of college. And that's how my career began. And I think that for me, after that, it was just, I didn't realize how much I loved it until I started doing it. But with writing fiction, I always knew. Like I used to write in my opinion, very bad poetry when I was younger, which I think only my parents liked. Like my mom even got it published.
That's a life story of a lot.
Parents love to each piece of the kids, whatever they write, they do.
Yeah, no, I used to think it was very bad, and I used to have like a notebook where I used to write it. I mean, at that time I thought it was good, obviously, but then I looked back on it and I was just like, oh God, it's so bad. And my mom, in fact, got like 2 of my poems published when I was 13 years old. She got me put in an actual book because she just like believed in me, and she just like got it put in this book. And but the thing is that for me, I always knew that I wanted to write. My mom was a writer. Our house was always full of books. My dad's a writer as well in advertising, but they're both avid readers. My grandmother is a literature, not anymore, she's retired now, but she was a literature professor at Delhi University. She did her PhD on Tennessee Williams. Yeah, so I grew up with it, I felt like it was almost unavoidable.
Right, it was in the family, right?
Yeah, so I definitely knew that I wanted to do it, and I wanted to find a voice that was mine, because I grew up reading romance and crime and children's books and lots of things, and I wanted to I didn't feel myself fitting into a lot of those genres. So I think that one thing that I was very grateful with One Night Only was that it doesn't fit into a genre. It is about women, sure, but it is not romance, it is not chick lit, it doesn't end in like that traditional. I think it has a very happy ending. It's just not the happy ending. It's not
conventional.
Yeah, it's not a Hugh Grant movie happy ending.
Sure.
So I think that for me, I was very lucky that I ultimately found the kinds of publishers who were excited about that. It wasn't easy in an Indian market that is very geared towards very typical commercial fiction.
Right.
So I was lucky to have several editors who believed in it. After several editors who didn't.
So just a lined up question from here. Let's talk about some rejections about
We talked about this earlier, yes.
We just talked off screen about it.
Yeah.
I want to hear again from you, once you start pitching your script, once the script was ready and you start pitching to the publisher, so how was their reaction? Did they accept it in a one go, or they rejected it for a certain reason? How did it go about it?
So I think that one thing that happened for me, and this is what we were talking about as well, Neha, which is that I think that a lot of people sort of found out about it, and they found out about like the good phase, the phase where, so I finally got offers from 3 publishers. I won't name the other 2, but Pan Macmillan was one of them, and the one I ultimately ended up choosing for multiple reasons. But the other 2 publishers were also fantastic, like very well known, incredible in the market, great portfolio, and I felt very lucky. I felt very lucky to have multiple people excited about the book. But for me, it was doubly special because I had spent 7 months getting rejected. Like people were, people never had a problem with the writing. They always thought it was well written. They thought the characters were good, but I was told that I needed a happy ending. I was told that I needed that a bisexual protagonist might be a little tricky from a sales point of view. I was told a lot of different things, and I lost a lot of faith along the way. And I feel like it's really important for any debut author to know that you are going to be rejected. You are going to be constantly questioning yourself whether you're good enough. I had given up at one point. In fact, when my first offer came in, I had told my agent that I'm done. You can pitch it. I can't deal with this anymore because I've had my heart broken too many times. And then the minute I took the pressure off of it, in a month we had 3 offers.
Oh, wow.
But the 6 months before that were pure torture. And I think that it's important to talk about that. Like I feel like it's important to talk about being rejected because it led me to believe that I wasn't good enough, what I was saying wasn't good enough, my voice wasn't valid, my story wasn't valid. And it was only after all of this happened, and I was lucky enough to have people be interested, to care enough to pitch to me, that I realized that it's not that. It's the fact that you're dealing with a market that has a lot of variables that you can't control.
Right.
Like being good is not the same thing as being sellable.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that writers remember that, because there are, and we all know this, there are people in every field that are not good at what they do who are doing very well. and literature is no exception. So there are lots of authors on the market who are not very good at what they do, who don't have an original story to tell, but who have figured out a formula that works for them. So I think that it's important to say that, do I want to be that? Because you can be that and absolutely be that. If you want to be a career author who writes by formula and who sells books, that's absolutely fine. There's no shame in it. You know, people are doing it across fields. People are doing it in TV. They're doing it in fashion. They're doing it in alcohol. Every single field that you talk about, there is a category of people who produce for the masses.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing you have to ask yourself is, do I fit into that category? Can I fit into that category or not? Like, I beat myself up for a long time because I realized that I can't fit into that category. And then, touch wood, I was reminded that it doesn't matter. Someone is going to believe in you for what you have to say.
Right.
And I think not losing sight of that is important.
Yes, waiting time may be a little longer,
Yes,
for sure. But
for sure.
For this one, it is really fruitful.
Thank you.
So I keep looking at your Instagram where you recommend books. So you are a reader. I mean, you have mentioned already. So what exactly, brings your interest in the books? Maybe a fiction, non-fiction. What kind of books do you really read?
I actually can answer that fairly cleanly. I read a lot more fiction than I do non-fiction. I don't not read non-fiction. I'm just more drawn to fiction in general. For me, I think that over time I read a lot of male authors, but I find myself reading more women authors in general, because I feel like, again, there's a relativity of experience. And I think that the way I choose something is that I like anything that sort of like explores the human mind, the human dynamic in some way, shape or form. So I actually don't read very much fantasy, for example. I don't read a lot of science fiction. Okay. I don't mind science fiction, but I don't read a lot of it organically. But I love, like, off the top of my head, I've talked about this book before, but I'll talk about it again. Like, I love Less by Andrew Sean Greer.
Oh yes.
It's an incredible book. But I find that anything that sort of like explores the vagaries of the human mind, explores relationships, explores dynamics, explores trauma and love and the madness of human connection. I enjoy that very, very much.
Razia, what kind of books you read generally?
Well, I am on the other side of her choices. Actually, I prefer non-fiction more. No particular reason. I think majority of my life I've been inspired by a lot of biographies I've read. Right, so so non-fiction comes really naturally to me. Fiction, I do read. It's not a no-go area, but only specific genres. Like, I'm a thriller fan, so I prefer that to be read when I chose to read fiction.
Saumyaa, you travel a lot, right?
Not as much as I want to.
So, do you explore like bookstores in different cities, or maybe libraries in different cities?
Yes.
Do you visit? So, tell some particular experience about a bookstore or any library you have visited.
I think I was just in Turkey. And I was in Istanbul, and I went into every single bookshop I could find, and all of them had only Turkish books. So that was very disappointing. But the thing is that for me, I just enjoy being in a bookstore. So it actually doesn't matter if I can buy a book, if there are going to be books that I'm able to buy, able to read. It's okay. It's fine. I'll go into, and at least in Istanbul, I found that a lot of the bookstores were really interesting if they weren't like these big mainstream bookstores. If they were like slightly offshoot, like you go into a lane and then there's a guy who has like a very small collection of books on one shelf. And like I think recently I went into this one bookstore in near Taksim in Istanbul, which was this very small bookstore that had this big crate of like photographs from like, I think 1930 Russia, and it was so random. Like, it was so, I was like, why do you have a crate of like, and it's not even Turkish people, it's just Russians from 1930. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, these are like 150 lira, 200 lira. And I was just looking at these like old photos of Russian families, or it's just like, imagine like your family photos
They're
suddenly
just
being
selling
sold
it.
200 years later.
Right.
It was so random. So I found that really interesting. The fact that like I walked in and there was just no explanation for why there was a box of like Russian family photographs.
So you
And
bought
was-
that?
No, I didn't end up buying it because it was very overpriced. 200 lira for one photograph.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's $1,000 for one
Right,
photograph, or
right.
somebody's like, I was just like, this is so random. What am I even going to do with this? But yeah, so I mean, I talked to the guy and I asked him, and I was like, is this your family? No. No, didn't give me any explanation. I was like, okay then.
Must be something I will. That
So
you don't know.
I think I enjoy that kind of bookstore a lot. Like for me in Bangalore, I spent so much time at Blossoms when I was growing up. Bookworm, where I had my book launch.
Yes.
So I think that there's a comfort, the smell of books, and the there's not that aggressive like buy this kind of energy. You go in and like, obviously you buy from them to support them
Right.
and make sure that they stay in business, which is why Blossoms is still around,
Yes.
because it had a community of readers who love them and who would support them constantly, and they love books as well because they will buy your books from you as well. The idea is to keep books in circulation.
Community is really important, The
Yeah.
Blossoms,
That's
the
true.
way they have build up a community around it.
Absolutely, and I think I really like that. I enjoy the idea of being part of something larger in terms of like a love for literature, and just going there and like, I mean, I remember being a college kid and going to Blossoms and just sitting on the floor and reading, and it was so nice, and no one ever bothered you. No one told you like, are you going to buy something, get out. It was never there.
No.
And at that point in time, you couldn't afford to buy that many books because you're a college student. College students have no money, famously. So if you have money and you're a college student, you're doing it wrong. But I think I like that. I like bookstores that encourage reading, and I like bookstores that aren't like very structured and clinical by design. So I like the big intense department store kind of bookstore also for a different reason, but I think I'm a lot more drawn to the quiet ones, the second-hand ones.
Nice. Any question, Razia, or Saumya, if you have?
No, what next? I heard you say you haven't transitioned into a full-time author, but do we see you doing that very soon?
I am writing something. I feel like I need to finish it before I can talk about it, because authors have a tendency to do this now. I'm writing something and then 4 years later the book still isn't out. So I am writing something, and I'm excited about it. It's very different from One Night Only. But I think for me it's always going to be a balance between writing fiction, writing novels, and journalism, because I feel like journalism is a very important, and it informs my work. Because I feel like I wouldn't pay attention to research and process the way I do unless I was a journalist.
For sure.
Because I feel like it just instills a certain thing in you that, like, if you're making a reference and you're saying, it's very small random things, but like, say for example, if I'm talking about a certain type of tree moving around in the background in Goa, I'll be like, what tree grows in North Goa near Morjim? And like, I will look at that and I will try and see what articles I can find, and then I will put in the name of the correct tree. And it doesn't matter to anyone but me, I know that. But I just feel like one always informs the other. Like for me, the research that goes into my work as a journalist, it informs the accuracy of what I'm writing in a novel. And the same way, the language and the visuals that I use in my fiction will then find their way into my editorial work as well, and into my journalism. So I think that it's very symbiotic for me. It's one feeds into the other, and I really enjoy that. So.
It's lovely you said it, because I think many of us think that you've got to find your niche and you stick with it. But if they're complementing things that you're doing,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, why not, right? It just helps you grow as a person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the last question for you will be, like, do you think how much book marketing actually plays a role for you? Just writing will be, one aspect of it. But do you think marketing a book is actually a different game?
Oh, completely. Completely. And I can't write when I'm marketing, which is why I haven't written anything for 6 months. But yeah, I think that they're two very different things. And sometimes you can be good at one without being good at the other. and both of them have their pitfalls. Like, I know authors who are incredible writers, and very few people know about them because they are not good with public speaking. They're very shy. They will have maybe one book launch or not that. So this amazing book will come out and it'll disappear into oblivion because no one has talked about it, no one has shed light on it. And that I find very, very sad. And what I find equally frustrating is the reverse, which is people who will write bad books.
But their marketing,
marketing
But
so
their
well.
marketing is fantastic. They have teams employed. They're very good at it. They're super charming when you meet them in person. They know how to control a crowd. They have like massive social medias, which will get a lot of followers, and they employ that. And I think that what tends to happen is that those guys end up selling a lot of books by virtue of just doing their marketing right. So I think both ends of the spectrum bother me because it feeds into that same thing that I was dealing with when I was being rejected, which is being good and being sellable are not the same thing. So and there are some people who are good at both. Kudos to those people.
But both, go side by side. If you have written a book,
Yeah.
obviously you have to market it. I mean, I understand sometimes, writers are little, maybe shy, the word which you have used. They are shy about marketing.
Yeah.
They thought if they have written, that will sell,
Sell
but
for itself.
definitely it will sell, but it has to be in the public eye. Only then it will sell.
Absolutely. But the thing is that, like, this is a interesting larger conversation as well, because like I was having this conversation with somebody about like how several years ago, a couple of decades ago, you didn't like celebrity chefs were not a thing. Like no one, I mean, like you could be really, really good at your job and the industry would know you for being good at it. But now there are certain celebrity chefs that the world knows, and the chef position has become front facing. So if you're a chef, a lot of chefs in India will also have to be cool and charismatic and come out and engage with their their audience, and they have to come out and they have to cultivate this persona that makes them sexy and marketable, whereas actually that's not their job. Their job is to make really great food. So I feel like one thing that's happened, which and the same thing applies to being an author, which is that you could be an incredible author who's good at public speaking, and you could be an incredible author who is painfully shy. And what's going to happen is that the author who's good at public speaking will win because people will know about their book. They'll be able to sell their book better.
Right.
And I think that one thing that is sad is that there are certain professions that are front-facing by nature, like being an actor. Being an actor, you're in front of a camera, you're in front of an audience all the time. So it's only natural that you will be expected to perform.
Right.
But as a writer, writers are famously reticent. They tend to hide. There's so many writers who are recluses who will hide from the world in the hills and write, Oh, that would be so lovely. But no, I'd miss people.
We have so many writers
But-
from the hills, by the way.
Yeah,
From
and so
Mussoorie, it's a hub of writers.
exactly, because the thing is that writing is about, and this is something that even drives me crazy as a journalist when I'm working in an office, is writing is about silence. I can't write with music also. I can't. I need to be somewhere quiet. And it's interesting because writing is quiet, but marketing is loud. And you have to marry the two in order to be successful.
Oh, actually, I love the quote what she said. Now I'll use it for sure in somewhere. Then writing in silence and marketing is loud.
Writing is silent
good.
and marketing
I'll
is
definitely
loud.
use this quote somewhere.
Thank you. Credit me.
One lined up question, Saumyaa, while you were talking, I just got the appearance of the writer. Somewhere I think you have written that somebody told you, oh, Saumyaa, your book is coming out in a month, so you just have to behave in a certain way on social
Right,
media.
yes, yeah.
Not to put out your pictures, some pictures maybe in bikini or something.
Yes.
Just projected as an author. So what is the projection of it? Let's have Razia, because
Yes.
Razia, you tell me, what do
Actually,
you
I'm
think?
flabbergasted that somebody told her that.
With women, people have opinions all the time.
Yes, that's true.
I get a lot of like, be
So
careful
if
of this.
if I tell you that she's a writer, right, without looking at the picture, what persona you get? What kind of a girl she will be?
Okay, I'm a very strong believer. I don't judge people by their appearance, whether it's a chef or an author or anybody it could be, right? I would want to rate a person for their work, and of course I will know of their work if I would want to interact with them. But Saumya, I knew her, I mean, journalism, been at lifestyle places like Cosmo, GQ. Of course, she's stylish. I mean, we all can see that. So, but I think as an author, I really don't associate a certain appearance with an author. At least not me for now. So I didn't see any disconnect. Oh, she was this, so can she be an author? I just don't think it's the point.
That's lovely, but that's also a very rare viewpoint, because I think that for a lot of people, you know, there was the thing of like, there's a certain way that authors behave. I find that there's a lot of authors that feel the pressure from the literary community to take themselves very seriously, present very seriously. So, you know, your tone changes, your behavior, the way you present yourself will change in order to fit into the idea of being taken seriously. And for me, I think that one of the things that has always bothered me is, if that came naturally to me, I would do it. You know, if it came naturally to me to present in that more serious fashion, dress a different way, you know, come across as a certain type of author, I would do it. I would have no problem with it. But I think that for me, writing is about authenticity. So if I'm reading someone that sounds like A, and then when, you know, I engage with them, they present like B, it feels inauthentic.
For sure.
And I feel like it is unfair to me and unfair to any reader to be different from the person that I am, which is a person that will be at Lit Fest, but will also be in Goa drinking a Bellini in a bikini, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So my point is that, like, at the end of the day, women's bodies are constantly policed. We talk about that in the book as well.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you something, and by the way, all the opinions that I've received, 90% of the opinions that I've received about, like, you know, wearing like bikinis and putting up these pictures or being an author, blah blah, men. It's men. Because nothing bothers men, or at least I'm not going to say not all men, okay, I'm just not going to do it, but nothing bothers a lot of men more than a woman having agency over her own body. So, you know, there was a very interesting discussion that was happening, I've forgotten where, about a year ago, where I was talking about how it's so interesting that, like, if a woman, if the nudes of a woman are leaked, men will completely buy into that. They will forward it, they will send it to each other. They may do it privately, they may do it publicly, but they will absolutely propagate that culture. And if the same woman charges for those photographs on an OnlyFans, that is very upsetting to men.
Oh, yes.
Why? Because she knows that she's beautiful, she has agency over her body, and she's like, you want to look at me naked, pay for it. So I think that kind of thing is very interesting to me, because one thing, it's just about the shift in a power dynamic.
Yes.
So say, for example, if I had been hanging out in a bikini somewhere and someone had taken a photograph of me and put it up, that would have been treated very differently from me putting up that photograph of myself. Because the minute I say that this is what I'm going to wear, this is how I'm going to be, you can't stop me. It takes all your power away.
That's what you did with your Instagram, by the way, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about. The more women that say, I'm going to wear what I want and do what I want and function as I please, as long as I'm not hurting anybody. And I'm sorry, but like, a woman wearing whatever she wants is not hurting anybody. So I think that at the end of the day, if women take ownership of that and say, I'm just going to do what I need to do and you can't stop me, then society loses a lot of its power. Because the minute you do that and the log kya kahenge is taken out of the equation, then kya karenge?
They have to take it out from the equation. Log kya kahenge, just come out of it, you know.
That's right.
Exactly.
But so at the end, we are doing a closing of One Night Only. The podcast, it's a Booknerds podcast at the Blend Bazaar with Saumya and Razia here. And the book is available on Amazon. Just guys go and grab a copy and read it and put out all the reviews, good reviews or the bad one. I think Saumya, can you take the bad review?
Sure, absolutely. All criticism is valid.
So Saumya is open for all.
Don't put up bad.
Okay, happy reading and just buy the book.